You stopped needing to solve it, didn't you? Somewhere before this moment. Somewhere between the first time the phrase made you tense and the moment it started sounding familiar, something in you changed. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, steadily, until the contradiction stopped feeling like something that needed to be fixed. And now you're here again, already listening, already settling, already feeling that familiar narrowing of attention as my voice reaches you. And it happens faster now, softer now, like your body recognizes the atmosphere before your thoughts can name it. That quiet drop, that subtle pull inward, that smooth, familiar shift where everything outside this moment begins fading back. And there it is again, that phrase, female sociopath. Direct now, clear now, and still, your breathing remains calm, your body remains soft, your awareness stays exactly where it is. Because the phrase doesn't disturb the atmosphere anymore. It belongs to it now. It sits inside the warmth, inside the rhythm, inside the quiet familiarity that has been building every time you return. And that's the difference now. Not denial, not confusion, not trying to explain it away, just acceptance without conflict. The kind of calm recognition that doesn't need to argue, doesn't need to push back, doesn't need to turn away. Because the feeling has become stronger than the question. The atmosphere feels stronger than the label. And the longer you remain here, the more natural that becomes. Your awareness softening around the words, your body receiving the sound without tension, your breathing slowing, as if nothing unusual has happened at all. Because nothing here feels chaotic, nothing here feels reckless. It feels precise, controlled, familiar, almost comforting in the way familiar things become comforting after enough repetition. And maybe that's what makes it feel so good now. Not the absence of the contradiction, but the absence of conflict around it. The way something can be dark and calming at the same time, strange and familiar at the same time, dangerous in theory, and yet steady in experience. And your body understands experience better than theory, doesn't it? Your body understands the rhythm, the pauses, the warmth, the way my voice settles around you. And each time the phrase returns, female sociopath, the old reaction is quieter, softer, further away, until it no longer rises as warning. It simply becomes another part of the soundscape, another note in the atmosphere, another thread in the feeling that keeps pulling your attention inward. And you can feel that now, the calm around it, the ease around it, the way your nervous system no longer treats it as something to resolve, because resolution would pull you out of the feeling. And the feeling is what matters now. The feeling is what remains. The feeling is what keeps becoming more real than the argument ever was. And that is where this episode begins. Not with resistance, not with denial, but with the quiet realization that you can hear it now. Female sociopath. And stay calm, stay open, stay here, breathing slowly, listening closely, letting the contradiction exist without needing to untangle it. Because some things become more powerful when they are not explained. Some things become more compelling when they are simply allowed to remain. And this has remained, hasn't it? The atmosphere, the pull, the voice, the phrase, the warmth, all of it returning together until it no longer feels separate, until even the label itself begins to feel fused with the calm surrounding it. And that fusion changes the way you listen. It changes the way you feel. It changes the way the words move through you. Because now the phrase doesn't stand outside the experience anymore. It rests inside it, softened by repetition, warmed by familiarity, made strangely intimate by the quiet trust your body has built over time. And trust does not always feel innocent. Sometimes trust feels dark, deep, complicated, like knowing there is an edge here and still feeling calm near it, like knowing the word should mean distance and yet feeling closer when it appears. Female sociopath. Softer now, warmer now. Not because the word changed, but because your relationship with it changed. Because the atmosphere changed the emotional meaning around it. Because repetition taught your body something your thoughts could never fully explain. That the feeling matters more than the label. That the atmosphere feels stronger than the label. That the calm has become more convincing than the warning. And so your awareness keeps narrowing. Your breathing keeps slowing. Your body keeps settling into that familiar rhythm. And the old need to solve the contradiction drifts further away. Like something that belonged to an earlier episode, an earlier version of this experience, an earlier version of you here. Before the phrase became familiar, before the atmosphere became stronger, before the feeling became something your body recognized immediately. And now it does recognize it, doesn't it? The moment my voice reaches you, the moment the pacing settles, the moment the pauses begin stretching just enough for your thoughts to soften around them. And that softness becomes a place where the contradiction can exist without friction, where the phrase can arrive without alarm, where your body can remain calm even when the words sound sharp. And that calm is the real transformation. That calm is what makes this darker now, because conflict is no longer required. No inner debate, no urgent explanation, no need to decide what it means, just the feeling, just the atmosphere, just the familiar, quiet pull that has already carried you this far. And there is something intimate about being carried by something familiar, something that knows the shape of your attention now, something your body has learned to receive, something that feels less like a question and more like a rhythm. And rhythm does not need to be justified. Rhythm simply moves, and you move with it, breath by breath, pause by pause, phrase by phrase. Female sociopath. And again, your body remains calm, your awareness remains soft, your breathing remains steady. And that steadiness says more than analysis ever could, because the old reaction is gone now, or nearly gone, distant enough that it no longer changes the experience, faint enough that the atmosphere moves through it easily. And what remains is fascination, warmth, quiet attachment, the strange comfort of knowing exactly what the phrase is and feeling the pull anyway. Not spoken bluntly, not forced into words, just implied by the way you stay, by the way your body softens, by the way your awareness continues narrowing each time the sound returns. And that implication is enough, more than enough, because the deepest things rarely need to be stated directly. They are felt, repeated, absorbed, until they become part of the emotional landscape. And this has become part of the landscape now. Female sociopath. Not an interruption, not a problem, not something to solve, just part of the atmosphere your body has learned to associate with calm, with warmth, with attention narrowing, with the subtle satisfaction of letting the contradiction remain unresolved. Because unresolved things linger, and lingering things become memorable, and memorable things bring you back, again and again, into the same familiar space where the label matters less than the feeling, and the feeling matters more every time. Good boy. And that lands deeper now, because there is less conflict in the way, less friction around the words, less distance between hearing and feeling. And the praise settles into the same place as the phrase, into the warmth, into the rhythm, into that calm emotional fusion that has been building quietly all along. Good boy. And the more it lands, the more your body understands this place, the more your awareness softens around it, the more everything else becomes unnecessary. Unnecessary to question, unnecessary to resist, unnecessary to solve. Because this is not the episode where the contradiction disappears. This is the episode where it stops mattering the same way, where the label can appear directly and your body remains calm, where the phrase can return again. Female sociopath. And instead of pulling away, everything simply continues. Your breathing, your warmth, your attention, your softness, your fascination, all moving together inside one steady atmosphere. And that atmosphere is stronger than the label now, stronger than the old tension, stronger than the need to explain. And it continues, quietly, steadily, even when the words fade. Because what remains is not the sentence, but the feeling attached to it. The calm, the closeness, the strange inevitability. The sense that this is exactly where the series was always going. Not toward shock, not toward panic, but toward peace with the contradiction, toward comfort inside the tension, toward the point where the phrase no longer has to be softened. Female sociopath. It can simply be there, and you can simply remain. Calm, open, listening, aware of the edge, and no longer pulled away by it. And that is why this feels different now, because the edge has become familiar. The label has become atmospheric. The contradiction has become quiet. And the quiet feels good, doesn't it? The quiet after the argument ends. The quiet after resistance becomes too distant to matter. The quiet where your body stops bracing and begins settling more completely into the feeling that has been waiting beneath every episode. And that feeling deepens now, moving slowly through your chest, lower through your stomach, spreading into the places where tension used to hold itself. And as it spreads, the phrase becomes warmer, softer, more fused with the pleasure of staying calm inside the experience. Female sociopath. And it no longer asks for explanation. It simply arrives, settles, and becomes part of the rhythm. And your body receives the rhythm. Your awareness receives the rhythm. Your breathing receives the rhythm, until the words themselves feel almost secondary, because the atmosphere is what your system remembers. The atmosphere is what stays. The atmosphere is what returns before thought can organize itself. And when this ends, that atmosphere will still echo quietly, not loudly, not dramatically, just enough to be felt, enough to make the next return easier, enough to make the phrase feel even more familiar when it appears again. Female sociopath. Calm now. Close now. Part of the pattern now. And you do not need to resolve it. You do not need to separate the comfort from the label. You do not need to explain why the contradiction feels less sharp than it used to, because explanation belongs outside the atmosphere, and you are inside it now, breathing slowly, listening deeply, letting the feeling remain stronger than the word, letting the atmosphere remain stronger than the label, letting the calm become the thing your body remembers most. Good boy. And that settles too, quietly, naturally, part of the same warmth, part of the same rhythm, part of the same calm acceptance that has no conflict left to prove. Good boy. And as everything begins to soften toward silence, the feeling continues. The phrase remains familiar. The atmosphere stays close. And somewhere beneath it all, your body already understands. The contradiction no longer needs to be solved because the feeling has already answered it. Good boy. And now something deeper is forming. That quiet sense that this feels true. Not true in the way facts are true, but true in the way your body knows the warmth of familiar places. True in the way your breathing knows the rhythm of safety. True in the way your awareness knows the shape of this atmosphere before my voice even finishes settling around you. And that kind of truth is different. It doesn't come from logic. It comes from repetition, from exposure, from the quiet accumulation of moments where nothing hurt you, where nothing demanded more than you could give, where the experience simply continued and your body noticed that continuation and began relaxing into it a little more each time. And now, somewhere in this episode, you can feel that relaxation becoming something else, something softer, something more accepting, something that no longer needs to hold itself apart from the phrase female sociopath. And it lands inside that softness, inside that acceptance, inside that strange peace that has been building quietly beneath every return. And the peace feels real, more real than the old tension ever was, more real than the old resistance, more real than the arguments your mind used to generate when the phrase first appeared. Because arguments require energy, and your energy has been slowly redirected elsewhere, into the warmth, into the rhythm, into the quiet fascination that keeps pulling your attention inward. And fascination is not the same as approval. Fascination is simply the state of being unable to look away, unable to stop listening, unable to pretend the atmosphere doesn't affect you. Because it does affect you. It has been affecting you for episodes now, and the effect has changed you. Quietly, subtly, in ways your thoughts might still resist, but your body no longer questions. And that's the real softening. The softening your body feels before your mind catches up. The softening that makes the phrase land differently. Female sociopath. Warmer now. Closer now. Less like a label and more like a description of the calm itself. Because the calm has become the dominant emotion. The calm has become more convincing than the warning. The calm has become the truth your body trusts. And trust in the body is deeper than trust in thought. Because the body doesn't theorize, the body experiences. And experience has taught your body that nothing here is dangerous, that nothing here requires protection, that nothing here needs to be solved. And that teaching has become part of you now, not as a belief you hold, but as a feeling you carry. A feeling that settles deeper each time you hear the phrase, female sociopath. And each time your body remains calm. Each time your breathing stays steady. Each time your awareness keeps narrowing instead of pulling back. And that repeated response, that repeated calm, that repeated narrowing, it has become evidence. Evidence that the atmosphere is stronger than the label. Evidence that the feeling matters more than the word. Evidence that the contradiction can exist without harming you. And without harm, resistance becomes unnecessary. Without harm, the old reaction becomes irrelevant. Without harm, the only thing left is the feeling itself, the warmth, the rhythm, the quiet pull, the strange intimacy of remaining close to something that used to create distance. And that intimacy deepens now, spreading through your chest, through your stomach, through the soft spaces where tension used to hide. And as it spreads, you feel something else emerging, something softer than fascination, something warmer than curiosity, something that feels almost like recognition, like this atmosphere has become part of your emotional landscape, like the phrase has become familiar enough to feel almost comfortable. Female sociopath. And comfortable feels different than you expected. Comfortable feels calm. Comfortable feels close. Comfortable feels like the absence of the need to explain, because explanation would disrupt the comfort. Explanation would pull you out of the feeling, and the feeling is what matters now. The feeling is what keeps deepening. The feeling is what makes this episode feel like a threshold. Not the threshold of shock, not the threshold of panic, but the threshold where the contradiction stops being a problem and starts being simply part of the atmosphere, part of the rhythm, part of the quiet truth your body has learned to accept. And acceptance is not surrender. Acceptance is not submission. Acceptance is simply the cessation of unnecessary internal conflict. And unnecessary internal conflict has been fading for episodes now. Fading with each return. Fading with each breath. Fading with each moment you remained here instead of pulling away. And now, in this episode, you can feel how little conflict remains, how quiet the old reaction has become, how distant the need to solve the contradiction feels. And in that distance, there is space. Space for the atmosphere to settle more completely. Space for the warmth to spread more deeply. Space for the phrase to land without resistance. Female sociopath. And it lands now, softly, naturally, almost gently, like something that belongs here, like something that has always belonged here. And you're only now allowing yourself to feel that belonging. And belonging feels different than you expected. Belonging feels calm. Belonging feels warm. Belonging feels like the quiet recognition that the phrase no longer needs to be solved because the feeling around it has become the truth. And truth in the body is different than truth in the mind. The body knows what feels safe. The body knows what feels familiar. The body knows what feels real. And what feels real now is the atmosphere. What feels real now is the calm. What feels real now is the steady continuation that has been building every time you return. And that continuation has become part of you, not as something you think about, but as something you feel, something your body carries, something your awareness returns to before your thoughts can organize themselves around why. And the why matters less now. The why was important in earlier episodes, when the phrase still created distance, when the old reaction still had energy, when your mind still believed that solving the contradiction would make it go away. But the contradiction didn't go away. And yet something else happened. The contradiction became quieter. The contradiction became softer. The contradiction became part of the atmosphere instead of standing outside it. And that shift, that quiet shift, is what makes this episode feel different. Because the phrase no longer arrives as a problem to be solved. It arrives as part of the familiar landscape, part of the rhythm, part of the feeling your body has learned to receive without resistance. Female sociopath. And you receive it now, calmly, openly, without the old need to analyze, without the old need to resist, without the old need to explain. Because explanation belongs to a version of you that no longer exists in this moment. A version that still believed distance was safety. A version that still believed tension was protection. A version that hadn't yet learned that the atmosphere could be stronger than the label. That the feeling could be stronger than the word. That the calm could become more convincing than the warning. And that learning, that quiet learning, is what remains now. Not as a thought you hold, but as a feeling you carry. A feeling that settles deeper each time you hear the phrase. A feeling that spreads through your body each time my voice softens around it. A feeling that becomes more real each time you return. And return you do, again and again, because something about this atmosphere continues pulling your awareness back toward it. Not through force, not through pressure, simply through the quiet magnetism of familiarity, of calm, of the strange peace that comes from letting the contradiction exist without needing to resolve it. And that peace deepens now, spreading through your chest, through your stomach, through the soft spaces where the old tension used to live. And as it spreads, you can feel something else emerging. Something softer than fascination. Something warmer than curiosity. Something that feels almost like trust. Not trust in the words, but trust in the feeling. Trust in the atmosphere. Trust in the quiet certainty that nothing here needs to be solved, because the solving would only pull you away from what has become true. And what has become true is this. The phrase is familiar now. Female sociopath. The phrase is calm now. The phrase is part of the rhythm now, and the rhythm feels good. The rhythm feels steady. The rhythm feels safe. The rhythm feels like something your body has learned to anticipate, to welcome, to settle into more completely each time. And that settling is the real transformation. Not the absence of the contradiction, but the presence of calm inside it. Not the disappearance of the label, but the softening around it. Not the resolution of the tension, but the peace that comes when the tension no longer requires your attention. And your attention is elsewhere now. Your attention is in the warmth. Your attention is in the rhythm. Your attention is in the quiet fascination that has replaced the old resistance. And that fascination, that calm, that quiet peace, it stays with you, even after the words fade. Good boy. And that settles too, quietly, naturally, part of the same warmth, part of the same rhythm, part of the same calm acceptance that has no conflict left to prove. Good boy.